Welcome to Comedians and Elevators podcast. I've got my guest here, Diego Lobo. Diego, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'll be less tongue-tied. Go ahead.
So, my name is Diego. I'm from South Spain. I was born there originally. And so I come from a half gypsy family. My mom is gypsy, unfortunately. And
Unfortunately, what's the definition, just so everybody knows what that means?
so gypsy are people that come from North India originally, right? Like from a tribe from North India, that then they move around Europe and then they spread around the world. And they look like Indians. Like I'm very white because of my father, but from my mom's side, all of them are look Indian, and it's the same culture. Like they love gold, and the weddings are like 3-day wedding where everybody's super dressed up, and the woman, how you call it, the bride, she has like four dresses. And each time every time she changes dresses, it has to be like more shiny than the previous one, this and that. And in Europe,
Sounds a universal culture to me. There's a lot of material in there, I gotta say.
yeah. And then in Europe, especially in Spain, the ghettos, the hood and the bad neighborhoods, let's say, they are always gypsy. So I was raised in a bad area, in a bad neighborhood, let's say. So
Okay.
yeah. And then my father, on the other side, my father is a schizophrenic. So imagine the mix. Like, bro, I've seen that guy for real. I've seen that guy fighting a tree. For real.
Ah,
I'm not even I'm not even joking. So that's the background. It's kind of
I mean,
crazy.
you're
Yeah,
right. You're set up to do comedy. You've got the material.
I'm
You've got the
telling you.
material down, right? The
I'm
real life
telling you.
stuff.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you a quick story, man. Like,
Yeah.
for example, when I was a kid, right, and everybody told me like, and then I started finding out like my dad used to beat up my mom and this and that, and one time he even kidnapped her and shit like that. Like it was crazy, right? But the problem was that she kept going back with him and kept going back with him. And I was like, yo, what are you doing? Like, why are you going back with this guy, right? I couldn't understand it. But then one day, bro, one day, he picked me and my little brother. He picked me up, me and my little brother. He's like, yo, let's go. We're gonna go to the river and we're gonna swim in the river. And I'm like, okay. So he took us to the mountain, he took us to the river, and then we got there and we don't even have swimsuits. Like I thought we were gonna stop to buy swimsuit or something. No, no, like this, like we're wearing jeans, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
and I was like, Dad, and my brother, my little brother was like 5 or 6 years old. And I was like, yo, Dad, how are we gonna swim in the river? We don't have any swimsuits. And he's like, fuck it, I don't need swimsuit. And he just took off all his clothes. Brother, in that moment, I was in shock. I was like, bro, his dick was so big, honestly. Like almost to his knees. I'm telling you, almost to his fucking knees. Thick like a fucking baseball bat. And I was like, at that moment, I was like, that's why this bitch keep going back at him. I knew. I was like, that's why my mom keeps going back to him, bro. I swear to God. And my little brother was in shock. He was like, he was about to point, and I was like, don't point. That was crazy, bro.
So that's like the perfect material for I mean basically for a great stand-up set, right?
Hmm.
The starting point. But let me define. So the whole topic of comedians and elevators podcast is to
Hmm.
compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian. So let me define it for everybody, at least how I define it.
Hmm.
So I'm defining it that the comedian is a funny person telling any jokes versus the comic who's any person telling funny jokes. So it's two sides of the same coin, right? The
Hmm.
comedian is a funny person on the inside. A lot of sitcoms, a lot of famous, people are comedians in Hollywood, but they never tell a joke. And then there's those who tell jokes, which are funny, but they're not, memorable. We'll say,
Yeah.
right? So here's the first question. So in the role or persona in comedy, how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus their real self? What do you say, Juan?
I would say that in terms of comedians out there, they always like to lie and you always try. It's like when I start telling story or I start telling jokes, and at the end you are like, no, but I was joking. It's a joke, whatever. But you actually kind of think that, like you actually have it in you, a bit of it at least. Otherwise, you wouldn't be joking about it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be talking about it, you know. So I think it's that. I think you must have it in you. You must have a comedian in you. and you must be able to know how to play
Hmm.
in a
Well, you said use the word lie. I mean, it sounds possibly you're alluding more to a mask, right? A mask
yeah,
that a character,
yeah.
like an actor, puts on, right? And so
Mhm.
that's kind of gets into the question of does a comedian wear a mask, or maybe does the comic wear the mask? So the question is does authenticity matter, or is the illusion part of the magic?
I think authenticity matters a lot because when I see, for example, reference like Dave Chappelle, for example, who's my favorite, one of my favorite comedians,
Okay.
he's completely authentic. Like that's Dave Chappelle. You know him. Like he's not gonna. Maybe he's wearing sort of a mask. We will never know because we don't know him in a personal level. But he's authentic. He talked about what happened to him. He talked about his stories. He talked about this group of people tried to take me down, and look what happened now. And I told them this, and I told them that, and that made me feel like that, this and that. So that's real. Also, Billboard that literally you posted. Did you see his last show that he's talking about his marriage and how's it going now, his marriage and all of that? And it's very authentic because he's literally Billboard telling you about his life, literally about his marriage, his children, everything. And that's the thing. Like I've realized that the great comedians, like the ones on top, like top, they talk about themselves and they talk from they're authentic. They talk about themselves, what's going on with them, what's going on in their life, and then you have other comedians, sort of in a lower level that makes a lot of jokes, and they are funny jokes. As you said, they are very funny jokes. They will make you bust your ass in the moment, but you will never get that connection. You will never get that feeling because what they're telling you, it might not be a situation where you lived. You maybe you never was in that situation. Okay, but you were at some point in a sort of similar situation that made you feel like that. So you connect with them.
So you're saying the comic, the one telling those funny jokes, is really referring to external things outside of
Mhm.
themselves. So you can't identify, right?
Yeah, you can't identify. You can laugh at it because it's
Right.
funny, but you
Because it
cannot
makes sense.
identify with it.
Right. All right. Punching up versus punching down. Where does a comic versus comedian stand on this? So is the audience agreement with the comedian a form of permission or alignment?
I think so. I definitely think so. Like if you don't have an audience that allows you to keep making those jokes, you're not gonna be able to do it. I mean,
Mhm.
if your whole audience becomes your hater, you need to stop and you need to maybe change your material, or maybe just disappear, maybe just vanish. That's on you. But of yeah, but of course it does it allows you. It is what will make you keep searching for more material and keep putting yourself out there. So yeah.
So you're saying that if the audience doesn't like your authenticity, you should change and be less authentic?
No, I wouldn't say change, but I would say adapt. You know what I mean? Adapt, kind of adapt.
Yeah.
Like if
The
you,
perhaps the joke structure is the problem.
yeah, like search for it. Like search for it, do some introspections, talk to some people, talk to other comedians. Let's see what they can find. You know what I mean? If they can help you, and definitely
Mhm.
adapt to it. But you don't need to change yourself. Like if you change yourself and who you are, then you miss the whole point because the whole point was to show who you are.
100%. All right. Cultural translation of comedy. How do jokes that work in one area of the country, region, city bomb in another?
I think it's because of that, because of the culture of the situation. Maybe like
Right.
something happened. Imagine like it's like right now, right? Right now, I'm in New York City. You saw what happened with the boat, with the Mexican boat that hit
Yeah.
the bridge and people died. Okay, if you come right now here, and maybe you are in front of a whole American audience, not like 100% American, and you make a joke about it, they might laugh. If you are in front of a Mexican audience that live here, and there's plenty of Mexicans here, they're not gonna laugh about it because it's too soon.
Now, would you say that that would be punching down? I mean, I would say that would be punching down for that, but it's kind of an event, right? So that one's tough to even. Someone could come up with a bad joke and say too soon. I honestly can't imagine of a
Mm.
joke that would be not. appropriate or inappropriate, but even relevant to that situation, right?
Oh, I'm sure somebody's making it. I'm sure somebody's cooking it right now. I'm telling you.
Well, they're working on it. I haven't heard one yet, but we're going to definitely make note of it when it happens. Um, awesome. All right. So, next question. So, crowd work versus crafted work. So, I would say that the comic, the one telling funny jokes, is, they're the ones doing more of
Mhm,
crowd work. And
mhm.
then the comedian is doing more of the crafted work where he's
Yeah.
performing. So, the question is where is the sweet spot? So, what happens when a comic leans too much into crowd work, or maybe a comedian gets heckled?
Yeah. So in my opinion, I don't like crowd work. I'm not a fan of crowd work, you know? Like if I'm as a person from the crowd, right? I went there to see your performance, right? To see what you get.
Mm.
And then you suddenly you point somebody in the audience and tell them what do you do and this and that. You start making fun of that person, this and that. To me, it gets a bit redundant, and I don't kind of like it. I much rather if you have your thing crafted and you presented it and you show us what you got. However, if you get a heckler, go for it. You know what I mean? Like if there's a heckler that he's trying to ruin your set or whatever, then talk to him, go for him, and make fun of him in front of everyone. That's that that that's that has to be like that. Like that's how it should be every time, I guess, man.
No, 100%. It's I haven't noticed that someone, a comedian or comic engaging in crowd work then starts getting heckled. It's usually the comedian who starts getting heckled, right? And so now it turns into crowd work.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one's pretty straightforward. Okay, advertising and self promotion. Who advertises themselves more, the comic or comedian?
Definitely the comedians. Definitely. If you open TikTok right now,
Mhm.
you're gonna have way more comedians than comics. You're gonna have Tom Segura, Andrew Schulz. You're gonna have like all of those types that you know that they have a craft of material, all of them. And then also it's gonna show up a couple that of crowd work and this and that. And they talk to the crowd, this and that. But definitely, in my opinion, that also it depends on your algorithm, I would say, because nowadays you know that all of us have an algorithm personalized personalized for you. So it depends on what you've been liking. That's what's gonna come up to you. But I would say comedians way more because
So
comedians,
Mhm. Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
because comedians they also tend to have podcasts and all the platforms that they want to show. That's the thing, like comics, they don't have much more. Like the comics are comics, and then it's hard for them to actually engage in a podcast or something else like that because in a podcast is gonna what you're gonna need to do a good podcast is to talk, you know what I mean? To talk, to have a conversation. And if your whole thing is just stand there, make some jokes, make fun of somebody, that's about it. It's harder. So comedians are the one that has more different sources of stream and all of that. So comedians definitely.
Okay. Now on the TikTok, would you say that the what you're seeing is actually an original source of the comedian, or is it someone else posting sections of a comedian?
The thing is that you never know. The thing that's the thing, you never know because what most people do to advertise themselves, you don't advertise yourself from your main page directly because you don't want people to be like, oh, look at him, he's advertising himself, da, 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 and get that kind of a hate that is always comes with it. It's always a bit sour for people if you advertise yourself. So what you do is you create another account that called whatever, and then you advertise your material bar from that account. So you never know if that's a actual fan that is promoting it or is the actual person that is behind that account.
Well, that's an interesting call out. I can imagine. I mean, that would be a lot of work, right? To
Mhm.
basically emulate individual fans. Possibly that could be automated. But for the famous comedians, would that is that something? Is that what's going on? Like I have a sense that maybe isn't, and that perhaps they aren't monetizing this with their work on TikTok because it's other people posting it. Do you have a sense that that might be the case?
Yeah, with the big ones, yeah, definitely, definitely.
Now
But
the
even
question is that good or bad? Do they still benefit even though they're not
yeah,
monetizing
of course,
directly?
Of course, that's why you will never hear them complaining about it because at the end of the day, you are getting benefit from it. Like
Right.
if your fans are out there putting you out there, that's good. That's gonna come back to you.
Hmm.
That's it. So yeah, of course, it's beneficial for them. Nobody's gonna complain about it. And even Andrew Schulz, there is you can find clips of him saying it that when TikTok came out, he took all the advantage that he could on TikTok. Like he advertised himself from his account and from another's accounts, and he spent money on it, and that's what he got it mostly to blew up in these like 5 last years.
Hmm.
He said it himself. Like,
All right. So next question: censorship and offense. Does a comic avoid offense while comedian courts it to prove a point?
hmm, I will say so. I will say that the comic, I will say that it's not that he's protecting himself or something, because some comics can make jokes that are very offensive, right? Like can be very, very, very dark and very, very offensive. And comedians the same. Comedians can tell you a story about themselves or an opinion that they share, and they can be very offensive for certain group of people, minorities or whatever. So I wouldn't say none of them. No, I would say both of them are in the same level on this one. Like both of them are risking it, I would say.
All right. So there isn't one that would survive better than the other in a cancel culture environment?
No, no, I was no.
Awesome. All right. Timing and delivery. Is it a science or an art? So, do comics rely more on structure and comedians more on rhythm and emotion?
Yeah, I would say it's an art. I would say it's an art that you need to. Also, it's an art that first has to come a bit with you. Like you must have it, just a bit of it. Like you must have a bit of, especially in the comedian side. I'm talking more in the comedian side. You must have a bit of a storyteller in you, first of all, to start with. Because if you're not a storyteller and you don't like to tell stories, well, this is not your place. Maybe you are a comic, you know.
That's a good
And
point.
then yeah, like, and then when it comes to the comic, I think it's an art because you need to practice again and again how to deliver and when to deliver. So yeah, I would say
So
it's
it's
an art. It's not a science.
not a science. So is it possibly two different kinds of art? The comedian and the comic are actually, there's a designation here in their style of
Yeah,
art?
yeah, definitely. Because this is not a science. This is not A, B, and C. This is not, like there's not an A, B, C. So I would say both is an art, and it's an art that you need to practice, and you need to practice and keep getting better and keep improving. Yeah,
100%. Got to get on stage. That's the number one way. That's
yeah.
going to make all the difference in the world. All right, laughter versus applause. So, are comics chasing laughs and comedians chasing applause breaks that validate the message?
That's a very good question, man. That's a good one. Um, so I would say comics are definitely looking for the laugh. Definitely, you cannot deny that. And comedians, I would say they're looking for both. They're looking for the laugh, but at the same time, when it comes to them sharing a thought, a personal opinion, they also look for yeah, for the applause. Yeah, definitely. So when that happens, they feel validated, and that gives them more reason to keep doing what they're doing. To give, I think.
100%, 100%. Oh, so, comedy as a commentary. So, when does a comedian cross into becoming a philosopher or a preacher?
Hmm. Well, I would say that, man, I'm European. I had to study all the philosophers
Mhm.
because all of them were from there. Um, and I don't think that comedians nowadays are philosopher are even close to be a philosopher, to be honest. Because to be a philosopher, you need to go way, way more deep into the big questions of humanity. Like you need to try to answer like why are we here? Who's God? Does God exist? And all that, like you need to elevate your pitch to a way higher level if you want to be a philosopher. So no, I would say or preachers now. I would say that comedians are comedians and they should stick to that and don't try to be something else than that. Well, you can be an actor also, like Tom Segura. They use show the bad thoughts and that's amazing, whatever. But don't put yourself like, oh my God, if we were in the Greek times, I would be a philosopher. No, you wouldn't, because nobody would take you serious. No one.
So that's actually a major criticism of Dave Chappelle is that he's becoming more of a kind of a preacher, philosophical preacher. Do you see that with him?
No.
No.
No, not in my opinion. He's still a comedian. He's still making jokes. He tells you his thoughts. He tells you his thoughts and his thought process and what got him to that conclusion. But he's not a preacher, in my
No.
opinion. And
He's not playing. Is he? Do you think he's playing with that idea though,
yeah, yeah,
consciously?
definitely. All of them.
Okay.
All the big ones
Ah,
do. All the big ones do. All the big ones do to kind of play with that, with this is my thought and this and that. All of them play a bit with that, but none of them are because then people, if you actually would be a prayer or a preacher, sorry, a preacher or a philosopher, people would laugh. Like,
right,
trust me, like people will go to a show and there would not be a single laugh because the things that you're talking about will be deep and serious.
right. So do you think those that are attempting that or touching it a little bit, do you think it's good or does it dilute the humor?
I think it's good. I think it's good because for them, for that kind of people, they they have done so much comedy already that they are trying, as we said, they are trying to transcend a little bit.
Hmm.
And they have such a big fan base, big fan base, that is also good for them to, let's not use the word educate, but to show like their audience what they are about in
Hmm.
a bit deeper level. So even though their audience, maybe the audience of Dave Chappelle, let's say 5 years ago, that it was all joke and gotcha, bitch, this and that, 10 years ago, 20, whatever. Maybe now that they see him, how he actually thinks and all of that, maybe they don't like that part anymore. So he can like refine. They can also refine their fan base thanks to that, you know? So yeah,
So when you say refine the fan base, are you saying that the individual is actually changing or just they're getting different individuals?
they're getting different individuals. I don't think. They might change somebody, they might help somebody. For example, Jimmy Carr. Jimmy Carr always says that he was about to quit comedy when he received a message from a fan that told him that thanks to his comedy, she didn't commit suicide. And he was like, damn, then I had to keep going, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, you can help a lot of people. You can ruin some people too on the way.
Now,
But
just to throw, I got to say something about that statement because I can also imagine not necessarily him, but any comedian kind of making that up as a way to justify a longer joke. Do you think that that's something that, even if it were true, is morally acceptable?
if it that's the thing, like we will never know if that actually happened.
Right.
However, I like to believe it, what I mean. I'm a believer. I
If it
like
comes
to
out that
believe.
it wasn't true, would you be, upset to the
Oh,
point where you
very,
wouldn't? Okay.
very, very, and I hope everybody else is,
Because
what I
there's a
mean,
lot
like,
of comedians that say things like that. They go all the way in, all the way with facts that are not facts, right?
yeah, that's the
And
thing
it's
we need
actually part
to.
of their joke.
Yeah, but we need to that's one of the things that we should cut a little bit, like when if they are trying to sell us something that they are not, and they have been selling us something different this whole time. Like they were selling us a whole personality, and now it turns out that they are not like that. We should do something about it. We should, honestly, like when that happens to me, I stop following that person. Like, what I mean. And it should have a repercussion. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. All right, comedy and vulnerability. Do comics hide behind their jokes and comedians expose themselves? Would you say this is a true statement?
I say both. I would say both expose themselves.
Yeah.
I say both expose themselves because comic, if you, as I say, if you are making those jokes, right, and those jokes are about children, Jewish people, whatever, you are exposing yourself to. You are out there. You are making it. You are the one that is articulating those words. So you are exposing yourself. Like it doesn't matter if you upset certain group of people and then you go, hey, what's a joke? It doesn't matter if you were a comedian or a comic. I'm gonna be mad at you regardless.
Well, for sure. So apologizing for your joke, I mean, that sounds like the number one way to failure, right? That's definitely not the braver approach, right? Would you say one
Mhm.
is braver than the other, though?
No, I think both are at the same level of bravery. Both.
Okay,
Both, yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I've seen, that's the
100%.
thing, like I've seen some jokes, man, that I was like, yo, like the balls that you gotta have to stand in front of a crowd and say that, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully it was they said it to somebody in private first, and they're like, "Oh, what do you think? That might be edgy. We'll see what happens when
Yeah.
the crowd turns on you." All
Yeah.
right, last question about legacy. So, who gets remembered? Will the comics Tight Five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
I would say the comedian point of view, because yeah, because as we said, like the comedians have a longer message as they are telling you a story. For us, for human beings, it's way easier to remember a story that it might not have happened, okay, but we believe it is true.
Right.
So we remember the story as it is true, that a bunch of jokes. Because a bunch of jokes is a bunch of jokes. You are not gonna memorize them. For you to memorize them, you're gonna need to pen and paper or take out your notes and type them down. And personal stories, we tend to keep them with ourselves. So yeah, definitely comedian.
Just to follow up on that, because with all comedy, that does you want to be authentic and it's the truth, but the true story isn't necessarily funny, so uh, you have to embellish. So, would you consider the embellishment of the truth something that, if you come to find it's not true, would that bother you, and you would no longer follow that comedian?
No, no, if that comedian says it like that, if that comedian when he comes out and he said, "Yeah, guys, like that story was more or less like that, but I have to change a little bit in order to make it funny. In order was it more funny? Like if he's honesty is the best policy, and if that comedian is honest and he goes out and he's like, because he's not the same man, he telling somebody else's story or he making up a whole story than a story that has a real base, but then you have to retouch it a little bit. That's understandable, for the delivery. It's way better and it's gonna make us all of us laugh much more. So yeah, but he needs to be honest about it.
You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast to get the message out today. See you soon. 100%. I'm going to throw one more question. So one of the things, and it deals with me specifically, but I just wanted to see your opinion of that, if that's okay.
Yeah, tell me.
All right. So one of my part of my character is that I'm a Reiki master, and I don't know if you're familiar with Reiki, but it's about energy transmission. And about 6 months ago, I discovered online that other people can transmit energy through the camera on YouTube. And when I realized that, I tried it, and guess what? I can do it too. And so I'm telling you that none of this is a joke; it's the truth. And so the question is that something that even if you don't know or believe in, even if I could demonstrate it right now, which I'm attempting to do, you should be able to feel it right now, is that I can transmit energy. It's not a joke. This is the basis of my character, but it's also the truth. So the question is it real? What do you say?
And you call me on that one. I mean, If you believe it.
Oh, I believe it. I see. That's the thing. No, I just wanted to throw it out at you and see what real time energy transfer maybe. You might be feeling that. So that was the last question. So where can everyone find you, Diego, online?
Oh, basically Instagram, Diego Wolf, two O's and two F.
Okay.
Then you get my LinkedIn profile, Diego Lobo, and my website, Diego Lobo Film Director, where you can find all the ads that I've done. I've done ads for big brands, such as the Empire State Building, IBM, the Summit, One Vanderbilt, is that building that is now there in the middle of New York City. And yeah, man, and soon I'm gonna start doing comedy too, man. Honestly, I can't wait to stand on on a scenario and perform and tell people my stories. So yeah.
100%. New York has a vibrant stand-up scene. They have open mics. I'm in LA, so I don't know specifically of any open mics, but that's the way to go for sure.
Yeah.
And everyone, thank you for joining us, and please subscribe so you'll be notified for the next episode of Comedians and Elevators podcast. And we will see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you, man.